Non-Americans, what is something in American culture that is so strange abnormal for you? How difficult it is to get around if you don't have a car. Not everywhere, but there are some places that are just impossible. No footpaths, bike lanes, decent public transport. Trust me, I hate that too. My closest convenience store is an easy 10-minute walk, but there's not a single sidewalk that allows me to safely get there. I don't like having to get in my car for everything. Perhaps the extreme polarization in politics. I'm used to having many parties, which gives more nuances. In the US it seems politics became a team sport, and you end up with your either with us or against us mentality a lot easier. I think that is very detrimental for the country, but I guess there's no realistic way out of that, nor any will from either of your leading parties to do so. We're stuck right now, and that's for sure. But yes, it's a red team, blue team affair, and people can't even comprehend not being on one. It's silly, but despite what you see on TV, many Americans live happy, content lives going about their business and not fighting with races or involved in activism or politics. How big some things are: big cars, big houses, big fridges, big yards, big pools, big distances between places. Huge. I was thinking of buying a lot and building a house. The smallest allowed in the town was 1,700 square featuring, and that is not including garages. Not to say that's huge, but I don't need 3 bedrooms. Don't get me wrong, I love your huge portions. Eating out was often cheaper than eating in, love it. But damn, it gets silly. All meals look like 2 and you're expected to take half home in a baggie. Can I not just pay half, eat half, and go home without a pocket of soup? Because the actual cost of the food is only 25% of the dish. Everything else is the labor, so it would still be 87.5% of the price if you cut the portion in half. TV is hyper commercialized to the point of being completely unwatchable. Even the news programs report and discuss stories on Starbucks announcing their autumn drinks menu 2 weeks ahead of schedule. It's ludicrous. How tipping is expected no matter what. Over in the UK you tip for exceptional or good service. It's something extra. In American culture it's expected. Sort of related, but a lot of restaurants are working at half capacity still because servers are not wanting to go back to working for $2.13 HR and essentially depending entirely on tips. My favorite restaurant won't open up its sushi bar area because they can't hire enough people to run the whole restaurant. That you have extremely violent shows on daytime TV, but you censor nudity. How will a boob harm you? But stabbing and blood splashing is normal. I forget what movie it was, but I remember an interview where they had a naked woman hanging upside down and you could see her butt crack. Can't have such nudity. Their solution was to bathe her in blood to cover the crack. Never listing the country name when they say a US place name, even if they're talking to a non-American who might not know what the US states names are. I remember working in Asia and colleagues tell me that always messes them up, unless it's a famous state like California, Florida, Texas, or something like that. Otherwise, they might not have a clue whether it's a state or a city. The more credit you take, the better for your credit score. Here in Germany your credit score will suffer the more credit you take, even if you pay it back on time. Yeah, I don't understand our credit system in the US. My wife and I paid off our car loan in good standing and our credit took a dump. The frick is that crap? This isn't culture, but the doors on public bathrooms have a gap on each side, so not completely private. I find that weird. Culture. Flag pride is pretty full on. Tipping. I do it because when in Rome and all that, but I feel so awkward doing it. It's kinda hard to remember now since it's been so long, but the flag pride bit has started to slack down a lot in the 90s. Then 9/11 happened and yeah, it's been intense since then. The obsession with high school. I have friends who say their best years were spent in high school and I think that's really sad. High school is very much made to look awesome by the entertainment industry. Of course, for the average student it's just going to a building for 6 hours to learn on weekdays. Being afraid to go to hospital because of the bill. I am a type 1 diabetic and as a young teen I was on insulin because I wasn't well. I was in intensive care for a week and general ward for 3. I can't imagine my parents being scared about paying for that. I'm 24. Had a brain surgery for seizures last December. Plenty of testing leading up to that point. 2. I love debt. Oh, and I also have student loans. God bless the USA. How big the country is and the amount of time you guys are willing to drive. I had a friend who drove for 16 hours to visit family for the weekend. It's baffling. Driving 16 hours for a weekend trip is not at all typical. Parents demanding rent or any money from their kids who keep living at home after age 18. In my country, adult kids who live at home will spontaneously contribute to the extent that they can, but most parents will do a lot to avoid accepting those contributions. Allowing your kid to focus on studies, their early career, and saving is a point of pride. You need to earn it does not apply to reasonable parental support. There's also a lot of social stigma around living with your parents after a certain age. Even if you're contributing something, this seems to be very much a Canada thing. All the things you can do at younger ages than you can have a drink. You can get into lifelong debt with a mortgage or university fees. You can drive a car. You can buy a freaking gun. You can have kids. You can join the army and kill people. You can get married. But at the wedding, even having done all of the above, when the father of the bride makes his speech and ends with a toast, you're sat at the kids' table raising a glass of orange juice because you're not allowed champagne. Also, you can't just drink a few warm-up beers as you walk to a night out. Enjoy a few cold ones on the beach or in a park on a hot day. For a country that prides itself on its freedom, you guys sure are touchy about casual drinking. IKR, it's like they've got it backwards. Like for me in Australia, drinking was probably the first adult thing people do. I myself am an American. However, I had a European friend come to my American high school. When we all got up to recite the pledge, she had the most frightened look on her face. She later told me it felt as if she was watching a cult. The amount of sugar that Americans consume. My cousins live in USA, and it makes me nauseous when I see how they drink coffee. 5 teaspoons of sugar. We drink 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee a day. So do the math. Lemonade. Pour that crap until you can't even say it's a lemonade, and so on. Add in the high fructose corn syrup and we don't stand a chance. That stuff is what makes Americans obese. I think it leads to our want for higher sugar consumption as well, but not an expert. Drinking alcohol in public being frowned upon or forbidden, and the resulting use of paper bags in which the bottles are wrapped. I'm from Northern Europe, where everyone is very distant to strangers. Since I live in the US, I've gotten used to chatting with everyone on the street, getting random compliments on my hair or outfit, etc. It is so nice. In Europe, we often describe this behavior as fake, but how about just being nice and lighten up someone's day at no expense? No, we don't have to become best friends, and we don't have to tell our deepest secrets, but we can actually do a lot of good by just being nice to people. It's not fake if you mean what you say and truly feel that way. The whole masking up is a political issue. Here in Asia, masks were a thing pre-COVID. Nobody cares if you had one on or not. It's no biggie. That from what I can see, bridesmaids are obliged to pay for their dresses and other expenses based on whatever the bride selects. This is super topical for me because my best friend is getting married next week, but I cannot even fathom how entitled that is. Obviously, I get that there are definitely considerate brides who will let their bridal party wear things they already own, or which are affordable, and obviously not everyone has the budget for an expensive wedding. But it seems like if you're obliging people to wear a particular expensive, often one use, dress and get their hair, nails and makeup done in a certain way, then that bill should be on the person making that decision. If you can't afford to pay for that, I'm not sure why it's your friend's job to pad your budget by buying a $300 dress themselves. I am American, but I can't get on board or understand football. My husband has 7 games currently being recorded and has taken the day off of work tomorrow. You get 4 attempts to move the ball 10 yards. If that happens, you get 4 more attempts to move the ball 10 yards. Once you get to the end of the field, you score. Beyond that, the game is details. At will employment. It is the weirdest thing to me. A company can fire you for any reason they wish. so long as it's not illegal. Your productivity dipped 5%, you were sick with the flu for several days, bathroom breaks taking too long, there's a cute girl the manager wants to hire and he needs to open a position, bye bye. To give you an idea of typical rural America, I grew up in a rural area in the American South. The closest grocery store was at least 25 minutes, 18 miles one way, away for most of my childhood. My parents owned 40 acres. We didn't live close to any neighbors that had children. The playground for my brother and I was the woods on our property. We fished in the creek, or tried to dam it up, built forts in the forest or just explored. There were no streetlights or sidewalks. I lived just off a busy highway. We drank well water. We swam in the river. Closest public pool was 18 minutes away. My parents never even considered taking us there. However, if we wanted to purchase lumber and hardware or clothing, or go out to eat at a nice restaurant or even fast food like McDonald's, then that was a trip to a city in a different county, 40 miles 45 minutes, or a bit more again. That is just one way, so approximately 80 miles round trip. When I got my first job, I drove that every day. The only decent hospital was located here too. I went to the same school from 1st grade to 12th with basically the same people. There were 28 kids in my graduating class in 1981. Probably about 700 children total in the entire school. The closest classmate lived 3 miles away. The school was approximately 9 miles away from my home. So every school day at 7 a.m. I got on the school bus, which took about 50 minutes to get to school after picking up the rest of the children on the route. When I graduated, the population of the entire county was 18,000 and the county is approximately 600 square miles. According to Wikipedia, it is the second smallest county in the state. I was the first one on my school bus. Miserable. Had to get up way early. I napped on the near hour-long bus ride. The way they assume everyone else is also American on the internet. Obviously they know that there are loads of non-Americans on the internet, but they don't act like it. Example, people selling things will simply say shipping is $4 with absolutely no mention of shipping where, and you'll have a whole conversation with someone about buying, and then when you get ready to pay and send your address, they go, "Oh sorry, I don't ship outside the USA." Also on that note, they list prices in $ but don't specify what currency. CAD, AUD, USD? If they don't mention it, every single time it's USD. Same with the shipping thing. If they don't mention it, in my experience, 100% of the time it's been USA only. It applies to buyers as well. They'll comment how much is that in USD and the seller is expected to Google convert that for them. They won't just do it themselves. This one I don't really understand, but I see it constantly. Another example, they mention states, cities, expecting you to know what they're talking about. I'm Canadian, so it's not like I'm far away or an incredibly different country, but they rarely know any names of any of our provinces, and still expect us to know their states. They'll also, when asking someone where they live, say, "What state are you from?" Again, they just assume everyone else is also American, and it's so strange to me. Everyone on the internet seems to have to cater to them. The intensity of right and left wing politics and how divisive it is. I get that most democratic countries have a right and left wing, but in the US it's almost a civil cold war between the two sides. Like, is it even possible for an American to be somewhere in the middle? Or does that equal immediate social exile? Most Americans are in the middle, but those people have lives. Flags are literally everywhere no matter what. The only time I would see that many Canadian flags would be the 1st of July, Canada Day. TBH, I don't remember them being quite as common as they are now outside of government buildings and certain events prior to 9/11, but I was fairly young, so take that with a grain of salt. Kids chanting their allegiance to their country in unison at the start of each school day. Holy indoctrination, Batman. How quickly people go from having 2 cars and a big house to total bankruptcy. Like, there is nothing in between. 2 months without a job and you are homeless, broke, destroyed. Being in center of the internet and most world, I mean even the standard old people TV news in Germany is talking about the states. No other country is so dominant. That things where you need to invite someone to go to a prom in high school or they vote for the queen and king of the prom. It's strange to put kids in such pressure. American here. I have no idea why we shove so many foods that should never be together at state fairs. Like I have seen shows on the Food Network that showed some genuinely tasting looking state fair foods, but the rest of it looks disgusting. The blind patriotism, flag worship, believing everything your government say and ignoring the hundreds of times when it turned out they were lying before. Americans display an utter reverence for anyone in a position of authority that's unsettling and more than a little grotesque. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.